Let's get going. 7:32. Call the April 21st, 2022 regular meeting of the Ashford Agriculture Commission to order. Seating of alternates. Sorry, Meg, we worked hard and got you all set up, but I got all five. So next time. So minutes. Now let's let Nick get going. Are you with us, Nick? We lost Doug too. Here he comes.
I'm still here, Art. I'm just feeding the cat.
All right, you can hear everything. All right, so approve the minutes of the last meeting. So if you remember correctly, we tabled the February minutes. So I'd like to start with those. So I have a motion to approve the minutes from February. You should have got everything within the last few days. So can I have that motion, or is there any discussion or corrections?
So moved.
Who's that, Paul?
Mike.
Mike. All right, Mike. Thank you, Mike. Second.
I can second it.
Sherry. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, February minutes. March minutes, should have got those today. Sorry, they were a little late, but hopefully everyone had a chance to look at them. So any discussion or corrections? Motion to approve the March minutes.
So moved.
Sherry. Second. Can I have a second on that?
I will second it. Mike.
Mike, thank you, Mike. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Minutes are done. Thank you. Hear from the public. Is there anyone here from the public who would like to take a moment and speak? I see Luther's got his hand up. Go ahead, Luther.
Hey, folks, just briefly, I was on the Board of Selectmen meeting Monday night when the discussion was had regarding the town-owned agricultural land that's part of the Cattle Rock property. I had actually had an earlier conversation in the day with one of the members of the Board of Selectmen to call out the notion that there may be those of us in town that are engaged in agriculture that would have an interest in having access to that land, and that it shouldn't just be awarded to someone that's offered up interest in using it. So the discussion that resulted from that was that the Ag Commission would weigh in on developing metrics by which to evaluate proposed uses and people that would have an interest in that land. And I think that's entirely appropriate. I'm very interested in pursuing a lease on that property. I mean, it's less than 3 miles from our home farm. It makes all the sense in the world for us to try to expand our operations into a relatively immediately adjacent property when we have the bandwidth to do it. So I would just like to put on record that when the Ag Commission does come up with guidelines to offer to the Board of Selectmen, that I would very much like to know about that. And I would very much encourage the Ag Commission to adopt guidance for the Board of Selectmen that is very heavily favoring resident farmers. even so far as to say that the property would not be available to non-resident farmers unless there are no resident farmers that have an interest, and that non-resident farmer proposals cannot be awarded unless there are no resident farmer applications, regardless of the merit. I think it's important that those of us that are paying taxes in the town and conducting business in the town have first crack at town resources. So I would encourage the Ag Commission to offer advisement to the Board of Selectmen to that end. And those are my 2 cents.
Thanks, Luther. We're gonna be adding that to the agenda under new business when we get down there. Thank you. Is there anyone else? All right, moving on. Communications. I've been chatting back and forth with the Conservation Commission, and I got an email from Loretta inviting us, all of the Ag Commission, was to me, but invites all of us to their next meeting. I reached out to them in order to get a conversation started on how we can start using Ashford farms to feed Ashford residents. As those of us know, Nick and Sherry and Doug and Ginger, we've been working with Yukon Extension. Their research has shown that Windham County, in particular, Northeast Connecticut, lags far behind the rest of the state in direct retail sales from farms to residents. And so they've started a grant-funded program called Grown Connected. And so it is recognized that we don't do enough direct retail sales to our neighbors. So we're going to get that conversation started at their next meeting. I'm going to go, and I would urge all of you to please join as well. I need some of you to keep me in check. Sometimes I wander and I may not have the facts straight. So I urge everybody, especially if you're growing fruits and vegetables in town or anything that you grow that could go direct retail to a town resident, please do come. It's a good conversation to get started. I think we all have the same objectives, and that is to keep the farms farming in town, and we're going to get the ball rolling instead of fighting.
Do you have dates on that meeting?
It's Monday. You'll have to check the town website.
Okay.
It's
Yep.
Monday, I think, at 7, and it'll be virtual. So,
Hey, Art, just right now, I'm on the town website. On the calendar section, it says it's been canceled.
well,
I'm trying to pull up the agenda part to see if they posted an agenda.
maybe they didn't want us
Yep.
to come.
Yeah, the agenda says canceled as well. So hang on, give my iPad a second and I'll pull it up, make sure.
All right, so
Yeah,
check that.
that's what I'm seeing.
I guess it would be the May meeting, right? They meet the third Monday, I think it is. Is that right?
Yeah, it usually ends up after our meeting. It's later in the month than us. So usually,
Yeah.
so it's been canceled. Okay. We'll do it again
Yeah,
in May.
it says next scheduled meeting is May 23rd.
All right.
So it has been canceled.
All right. Very good. Thank you, Paul.
No problem.
Let's see. So Luther, I did attend the Board of Selectmen meeting, same one that Luther was talking about. And one thing, note of interest, is that the town is gonna continue to stick with virtual meetings for the foreseeable future. COVID rates are continuing to rise, or the latest variant are starting to get more positives than everybody likes to see. So the town in cautionary fashion is still wanting to keep meetings virtual. So what we're going to be doing for the near future anyway. So that takes care of that. I don't think I had I don't talk to anybody else. Old business. Membership. So as everyone well knows, Mike and I have made it very clear, we're ready to have some youngsters take over for us. I was doing a little math today, and when I first became chairman of the Agriculture Commission, I was 49 years old, and I am going to turn 63 next month. So it is, it's been a long run for me and Mike. So we really need to be thinking about getting some new blood. I mean, it's got to happen sooner than later. You got anything you want to add, Mike?
Yeah, I'm coming up on 80, and I think it's time, really. I do have some issues, and I really am probably not going to be able to be as active as I have been in the past. And I certainly would appreciate someone stepping up to the plate to be assistant chair. Like Art said, it's been a long run, and it's been a good run. I've been very, very happy at what I've done in working with Art and the committee. So it's something that I think anybody could do easily. It just takes a little initiative. That's about it.
Just so everybody knows, I never was a member of any commission, chairman of anything. When I took over as chairman of this commission, was brand new. Everything was brand new. And we learned fast. We got it right. I think we accomplished some really good things. We got some really good things to continue to accomplish. I know that from what the meetings we've had, the experiences we've had with both planning and zoning and the Board of Selectmen, that they do very much appreciate having us and need us to advise them on all things agricultural. So, and it's not hard. It's not a lot of work. It's just, and it can be very rewarding. So it's, and the reason I had everybody, tried to keep everyone in the loop on how things worked with the Board of Selectmen on getting new people on and off, was so that we might need to do some shifts in alternates to members, or bringing new members on to replace people. It's not that hard to do. It's a simple process, and I'm not going anywhere. Even if I have to step off the commission in order to make a member seat available for a new chairman, I will be readily available to advise anyone who takes over. And it might even be best if I wasn't a member of the commission to help advise. That way there would be no issues of anyone arising over conflict, right? So, I see Luther has his hand up. Go ahead, Luther.
Art, I just wanted to put it out there. I was quite happily involved with the commission until recent events with a project that we were initiating on our property. I felt put the commission at risk of being maligned through proxy of an attack on us and our family, which is why I resigned. You know, for those of you that may not be fully aware, we are fully permitted at this point for the project that we are going to be doing on our property. We have our zoning permits, we have our wetlands permits, we have, within the next couple days, we're going to have a pretty good outcome, I believe, on some funding work. So we expect that we're going to be starting work within the next 30 to 60 days with our project. When at some point when the timing is appropriate, and I'll leave that up to the commission for discussion, I would quite enjoy re-engaging with the process with the commission. I enjoyed the years I did have as a part of the commission, and I'd certainly be happy to participate again.
That's good to know, Luther. Thank you.
Hey, Art.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure anybody who was on the selectmen meeting when I got put onto this board knows that I'm pretty involved already, and Luther and Doug are involved as well on other boards and commissions, which it creates a problem, and mine is kind of a personal problem with one person. But for those of us that are trying to juggle multiple things too, we have to be careful. So I would love to do more with this commission, but right now with the Board of Finance and other stuff going on in the fire department, it limits my time structure. I actually have been bouncing stuff off my wife to see if maybe I can get her to get involved instead of me, because as you know, she attended a few meetings in my place, so to speak. So that was something that we discussed, or maybe even one of my sons if they're interested in joining. And that's
Absolutely.
something else too. I don't know who else has friends or family that might be able to. I know Luther's got Megan involved, so she's probably real happy. But that there's other possibilities. It doesn't just have to be the people sitting in here right now. So.
That's, well,
And
yeah.
congratulations, Luther and Meg.
I kind of want to motivate everybody to be like a nomination committee, right? To start doing what you said, start beating the bushes and see if there's somebody else out there who might want to step up. And it's easy enough to shuffle people around. Just go to a Board of Selectmen meeting and explain what you're trying to do. And they're very supportive at the Board of Selectmen. So it's a simple process. And we just need to lay it out and get it rolling. So vice chair, chairman, we desperately need a secretary, right? I'm trying to do the minutes on my own, and it's just, ask Sherry what a disaster I am with my attention to detail. And you probably can tell, right? So we desperately need a secretary. And I know Mike was doing the FFA thing, the FFA student. Bethany Knowlton had offered to do it and she didn't make it tonight. So we need, so Bethany was working on that, Mike. I hope you don't mind.
Yeah. No, not at all.
So we'll grab hold of Bethany next meeting and find out where we are. So secretary, FFA member, chairman, vice chairman. All right, membership. The tax abatement status is still on hold. I haven't had, we've been putting out a lot of fires. So I haven't really picked that back up yet, but we'll get to it. We got a lot to do tonight, so we'll get there. The proposed changes to the agriculture regulations, I don't know, that was defeated by a 6-1 vote by the Board, Planning and Zoning Commission. But the Planning and Zoning Commission is moving forward. Hold on, Luther, I'll give you a minute. Is moving up forward with researching what other towns have done. They're going to invite Joan Nichols from Farm Bureau to come in and speak. So what we need to be thinking about is what's, and we don't need to discuss it tonight. We need to just start percolating this around in our brain for future meetings as it's going to come up. What's tolerable? What we might have to give a little bit. Is it percentage? You got to start thinking outside of the box. Building size standard just doesn't work. You got to start thinking maybe percentage of land area. Maybe thinking about. I just lost that thought. Thinking about some kind of streamlined, specialized, special permit process for agriculture that maybe doesn't have all of the 16 parameters. Just start batting it around in your head, right? Because we're going to have to come up with something. We're going to be asked what our opinion is on upcoming things. And so, Doug, did you want to say anything?
No, I think you hit the right points. We certainly should start thinking on our end as folks engaged in agriculture in town, what might be some appropriate and plausible paths that could go down. And then that could be recommendations to planning and zoning.
Right, exactly. Luther, did you have your hand up? No? Okay. I thought you had your hand up. All right, so that's that. Mediation, I mean, that's on there from last time.
So Art, on the ag regulations,
Yes.
would you recommend that, if we put it on the agenda next month? I'd rather we start thinking about something versus wait for planning and zoning to ask us.
Thank you for reminding me of that, Doug. You're right. Nick went out and found a link to a document that's called Planning for Agriculture by Municipalities, right? Nick, you sent it to me and I never did anything with it. So
I just started reading through it the other night. It is really long. It is really, really awesome from what I've read so far, though. And I think the entire Planning and Zoning Commission should read it.
I have a couple hard copies of it, I think, in my office. I'll see if I can dig them out, Art.
Yeah, so do we.
Yeah, and I think, if I recall, I got them from Farm Bureau at a meeting,
Yeah.
so.
Yep.
Maybe I can reach out to Joan or something and see if we can get some like.
Yeah.
Drop shipped on somebody's head at PZC. No offense, guys.
It's
Yeah,
a great
so-
resource.
Yeah, it's
It
really
is.
good.
Nick, can you read off the website for everybody here so that they can write it down maybe, or?
Or you can drop it in a chat.
I would say I'll post it in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
All
said if
right,
my mic
so
was off.
everybody grab that. I have it in, Nick texted it to me and I said,
There it
thanks,
is.
Nick. I'll email it to everybody and it's still in my texts. So
Yeah, I started at it last night and realized how long it was, but it's a great resource.
we used, I think, well, 20, that's the updated version. There was a previous version that we used when we worked with planning and zoning on the ag regulations, the previous 2 times. So, so that takes, so that's ag regulation. Mediation. So on the mediation front, Sherry wrote an article for the Citizen, which is pretty much
It's not really on the mediation front. It's more on the education front.
right.
Would you
but
like me to
it's on
explain what
living
it
next
is?
to a farm. Yeah, go ahead, Sherry.
So Bethany is mentioned a bunch of times about education, right? And starting something around education. And I thought about the brochures that we already have. We have a couple of brochures that were produced years ago, and they're actually on the website, on the town website under the Ashford Agriculture Commission. So I took one of the brochures and I typed it because that's how they need it for the Citizen, and we sent it in. So it should be in the May Citizen, and it's living next to a farm brochure. And so for next month, I'll type the other one out. And so that gives us a couple of months of educational stuff that's pretty easy to do. Nobody had to create anything, just type it. So that'll be going out. And that was education, not really mediation.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you.
So back to Doug,
It's
did
a
you want?
good brochure, by the way.
I was thinking, Sherry, we didn't get the Citizen in the mail this past month. Were we an anomaly, or did most of you guys not get it either?
We got it.
We got
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, we
For
got
some
it.
reason, we didn't get it, but I found it on the website because Ginger was really looking to figure, there was an article in there about kindergarten, and we got to get Lucas involved with kindergarten. So it was strange we didn't get it in the mail, but hopefully next month we'll get it in the mail.
Yeah, so this article was how to be a good neighbor to a farmer in 10 easy steps.
All right.
It's
10
good.
easy
It's good.
steps.
It's good
So-
content.
So back to media. Thank you, Sherry, for the educational update.
Yep.
Back to the mediation. I knew that had a reason. And I wish Bethany was here because she sent me 2 excellent websites on mediation between farmers and neighbors. And they're sitting in my texts, just like Nick's link is. And so.
One was
I was
Quinnipiac. One was for
Quinnipiac?
Quinnipiac.
Was one of
right?
the links?
Yeah.
The mediation center. Yeah.
Yeah, they have a nice mediation center at Quinnipiac. I'll see if I can find it and I'll drop it in the chat.
And in all of your spare time, you can Google Quinnipiac Agriculture Mediation Center.
I'll drop
and
it in the chat.
Sherry will drop it in the chat for you. Thank you, Sherry. All right, new business. Can I have a motion to add Cadle Rock Properties to advising the Board of Selectmen on Cadle Rock Properties to the agenda under new business?
So moved.
Moved by Mike, second.
Second,
Second by
second,
Paul.
Paul.
All right. So show me your hands. Everybody familiar with what Cadle Rock Properties is?
Yeah.
Paul, Mike, Doug, me, Nick.
Why
Okay,
don't
so
you give- Why don't you give
Cadle-
like a really quick primer on it?
I will. So Cadle Rock Properties is a property that was bought by the town of Ashford through a tax lien auction. The auction took place a year ago in May. And it took till there's actually a time period between the auction sale and there's like 6 months that the person can, who the lien is against can buy it back. And so the town took full ownership of the property in November of last year. It is, I don't know, it's 100 acres or more.
300 and
300.
change.
300 and change on the Ashford-Wellington line. A majority of it, I mean, a vast majority, it was only like 20 acres in Wellington. The rest is in Ashford. There was some, it was considered a portion of it was considered a brownfield site that has been remediated mostly. From comments from the Board of Selectmen, from what I've read from the reports, there was no groundwater contamination found. It was mostly heavy metals in the soil that most of it's been remediated. And there may be a little more test from what the Board of Selectmen were saying. This is nothing concrete. That there might be a little more testing and a little more remediation to do. On that Cadle Rock property that's owned by the town of Ashford, there's 21 acres of tillable ground that has been regularly corn grown on it, silage corn, by a farm from Hampton. And it's, no,
Yeah,
they're shaking his head,
Yeah, it's not
No.
actually right. It's all right.
by
Go ahead,
somebody.
Luther.
It was Tom Wells.
Yeah. So Tom Wells was the one actually, you had a deal with the previous owner of Cadle Rock, of that property. But the Hampton farm got involved, I believe, last year because Tom Wells sold out of the dairy business.
Okay.
That's how they got involved. And I'm assuming that's how they knew that that acreage was available. And there's actually a lot more than 21 acres of tillable. It's just that's the only part that's been maintained.
Okay.
So,
So,
not that it really matters for the story, but I'm just, there's a, as Luther pointed out, it's a pretty good piece of property, especially for him or anybody else in that local area. So,
go ahead, Nick, you got a question?
Yeah, is this what's considered the wagon shed property?
yes, sir.
Yes.
I just read the POCD and I'm trying to catch up on my.
The
Okay.
backstory on this property goes back a long, long way.
Yeah, I just read a lot of the backstory. I guess I wasn't caught up on the
And
most
just
recent.
to reference what I was saying, there's currently a $300,000 grant application with the state for further remediation stuff. So that's in the Board of, the capital improvements budget. But that's a grant funded project. So if the town receives the grant money, they go forward with it. If not, it sits again until they can do it. So there's at least one more round of remediation before it's designated as clean, if you will, and maybe more. It's a really complicated mess.
So, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, where's this property located? I know you said Wellington Ashford line, but what's it off
Right
of?
on Route 44.
Oh, the big field you can see that's half corn.
Yeah, where the big
No.
fence went up and when they remediated in there where the road goes in.
It's
Yeah,
immediate.
it's across from Howard Road.
Howard Road.
Yeah. So if you're
Just
going
before,
from Ashford to Mansfield, as you go, I know which field you're talking about on the left-hand side. You go further up the road about 1.5 miles on the right. There's a pull-off, a rather large pull-off. That used to be the entranceway to the original property. There used to
Okay,
be a
nice.
restaurant. There was a restaurant there
Yeah,
Okay.
called the Wagon
years and
Shed.
years ago.
That's why it's called the Wagon Shed property. Yeah.
Yep,
So,
that's what it was called. Now we're
Okay.
all dating ourselves, but anyway.
hey, so we try to stay on track or I would be here all night long. So the farm from Hampton has requested to the Board of Selectmen to grow corn again. And the Board of Selectmen feels, they agree with the comments Luther made to them, that Ashford residents, Ashford farmers should get first. Oh, Sherry just threw the mediation thing in the chat. Ashford farmers should get first crack. And at very least, it should go out to an RFP, right? So they have asked us to advise them on how to go about doing that. I worked with the town of Mansfield on theirs, and when they put their RFPs out, it was you would submit the proposal and then you went through an interview process. And so it was the town of Mansfield gave very loose guidelines, right? And then you proposed what you were going to do and they chose to accept it or deny it, right? So I think so we need to advise the Board of Selectmen on how to move forward. So number one, we think it's a good idea, right? Should we make a motion and a vote that we agree that the Board of Selectmen should put out an RFP for the property to at least make the access a little more even? Is that something we want to do first? Looking for a little, I don't know, Doug, what do you think? Or Paul?
Well, I was disappointed, and I'm glad that Luther and Art, you went to the meeting because I couldn't, because I was on the road. I'm still on the road for work, but I was actually working. But yeah, I would actually even I personally like to see it narrowed down to that it goes out to Ashford resident farms first. If they do an RFP, it needs to go to those of us that are in town. And, you know, probably every single one of us file a personal property tax thing with an ag exemption, or maybe not an ag exemption, but under the ag stuff. So they have a list of who we are. And especially if we're producers of something that would use that size of property, you know, there's no reason that myself and Luther and Doug and Art and Mike at least shouldn't have gotten something. And even Nick could have used it to put something in. So there's a lot of potential there that we should have gotten a notice that this property was going to become available for lease.
But this is all new to the Board of Selectmen, right? This is all new territory, and that's why.
Yeah, they've never. I actually was going to go on the meeting, and the very first thing I was going to ask is, what's the liability going to be to the town? Because, you know, I lease property in several places, and obviously I have a pretty robust lease agreement that protects myself and the property owner. But this kind of seemed like it was kind of off the cuff kind of thing. And it just came up, and I don't know, maybe not. I didn't see any lease paperwork, but
They were going to just, the inclination of the first selectman was, yeah, this is a great idea. Let's just do it.
Well, I don't disagree that it's a great idea. I just think that there's people that are closer and that are in town that might want to use it first. And then again, because of my Board of Finance involvement, I'm worried about the town liability. And so should, quite frankly, the Board of Selectmen be.
And from a, you know, non-commissioned member but local farmer perspective, it's somewhat important to me that the town not see this as a means for generating revenue. That
Correct.
If the Ag Commission develops guidance for the Board of Selectmen to determine who should use the property, the use of the property, the methodology of use for the property, the stewardship of the land, and the residence status of the farm should all take precedent over a dollar value associated with a proposal. In my mind, as a resident farmer, a $0 value proposal from me should have a greater standing with the town than a revenue generating proposal from an out of town farm.
Nick just threw up some language from another town that leased their property.
Yeah, this is Duxbury and Mass. I was helping someone else work on something that they're working with the town property on, and this was language that they had used in their contract. I can send out the contract, the whole contract, if people are interested, or their RFP. But this was a very particular. They're giving preference to people who are as close as possible.
You know, I 100% agree with Luther's statement too. I mean, some of the leases I hold are basically, instead of a fee, it's what I would call return of maintenance, right? So I'm responsible for taking care of the field boundaries, the property entrances, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I have to fertilize it. I have to make it productive. So that's kind of the trade-off. You know, in this case, I don't, it sounds like the town really hadn't done any research on it at all, which I'm not surprised at, unfortunately, but, you know,
I think this was all kind of took them by surprise, to be honest, from the conversations we had from what I heard at the Board of Selectmen meeting. It had all been done on a handshake deal before. And so
right. Well, it was a handshake deal between the previous property owner, and that's a huge difference now. You know, it's not the previous property owner was not the town of Ashford. It was a
exactly
corporation.
Right. And that's why they've asked us to help guide them in this process.
Correct.
So
That's correct.
So what we need to do is maybe we need to come up with, I don't know, half a dozen or so bullet points, maybe, that I'm just spitballing here. So if anybody's got any better ideas, I mean, we're not going to present them with the contract that Nick has, right? They're going to need to look at this. It's going to need to go to town council, right? But maybe just give them some bullet points that are parameters, right? Like the one thing Nick popped up there was like, preference will be given to local producers, right? And maybe things like preference will be given there was some comments about herbicides by one of the selectmen. Maybe comments of preference will be given to sustainable agricultural practices. And there were also concerns about the neighborhood, right? That, you know, when they're chopping silage cord, I know Jody Reynolds, I know the tractor trailers he runs hauling that silage, and those things have straight pipes and they're big Peterbilts and they're massive trailers, and them guys are hammered down. I was in Cumberland Farms and they were coming down the hill to the light, and it was just Jake break mayhem. And the neighborhood, for the 3 or 4 days or whatever it takes to chop that 21 acres of corn, is in an uproar, right?
Hours.
2 hours.
Hours.
Yeah, I was gonna say days. 21 acres. It was 3 tractor trailers and one
Well, no,
one convoy.
It's
All
2
right,
hours
so I
to
got
do
the
20
numbers
acres.
wrong, the days wrong, but I'm saying that the thing that catches the selectman's ear is less the farmer chopping the corn and more the neighbors who are pissed for 4 hours
complaining.
that those trucks are racing by. The town has had to repair apparently there's a bridge that they need to use to access the corn.
The town, I would encourage the commission to encourage the town to restore access from Route 44. It makes no sense in the world to me, as someone who would be submitting an application for use. I want access off 44. I don't want to have to snake in off of White Oak Lane or whatever it is. There's a 25-foot wide access way off of Route 44 that the state put gates across. I don't understand how the state has the right to do that. It's not their property. That needs to be restored so that it's not a traffic issue.
Are the gates where they were doing the remediation, that road there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So was that
It's all
maybe
town
the
property now, so the town could go cut the gate, cut the
Right.
chain and open the gates.
that may have something to do with the remediation though, right? I don't know if it was this, no? Well,
No,
anyway,
that was just access. The gates were put up there to keep people specifically the previous property owner from accessing the property while the remediation was going on.
So that's a
Um,
bullet point, right? What Luther said. We recommend that the access to Route 44 be restored. Because it does two things. Whatever that bridge is they talked about that they had to repair, the town crew went and fixed it. That comes out off the table, and the neighborhood mayhem. And then also all of the talk that we had about major buildings was traffic accessing smaller roads. So you know what? Maybe we just that's a good valid point, right? It's all points people have made in the past, access and big vehicles on little roads. So that would be a bullet point. Part of the process should be that the town either as part of the RFP allow the person who gets the contract to open up and maintain that access, or the town fixes it themselves and opens it up. What the town just needs to decide how they want to approach that. We just need to recommend that be a solution to the neighborhood problem on Giant Oak Road, right? That they reclaim access to Route 44. So that's just one more bullet point. So we've got a bullet point of, does anybody write this down?
The bullet points were largely recommendation and guidelines to inform the Board of Selectmen on how they should consider this. I think
Yes.
part of the local opening it up to Ashford residents first and foremost is, I guess you could dovetail that also into where you started the meeting with the Conservation Commission on locally grown sources for residents, stuff like that, right? But there's some linkage there.
Well, there's some
Certainly.
synergy there and trying to keep things local, right? Keep our local farmers productive, keep our local residents fed. Yeah. All right, so we
And
get,
then,
so
like, for folks that don't have a lot of land that do want to expand it, that are in town, it's an opportunity for them without having to spend an exorbitant amount of money to go very far away.
right. All right, so I'm gonna start trying to jot these bullet points down, so maybe we can come up with half a dozen or so, and so Luther just threw some in the chat, so we're gonna preferential treatment to Ashford resident farmers, right? Ashford resident farmers, something like that. All right, the second one was reestablish access off of Route 44. And you know what? And this kind of stuff is something that the Board of Selectmen is going to have to, they're going to say, okay, thank you for these recommendations. We're going to decide which ones we want to use. And they may ask us why they're important, right? But reestablish access to 44. And the reason for that would be to avoid the neighborhood conflicts, right?
Correct.
That
That's
they've
correct.
had mentioned in the past.
Yes.
So that's two. Preferential treatment. What else do we want to try to recommend that there was
Means of stewardship of the land, like proposed management practices. How is the individual going to use the land, and are they going to take care of it? Are they going to use chemicals with their process? Are they going to use non-chemicals, et cetera, et cetera?
So that might fall under methods, right? Methodology, what kind of practices?
Yeah, I would say using approved agricultural practices in maintaining the land.
Okay, approved or sustainable, or anybody got any?
Trying to find my,
A good catch-all is utilizing best practices as outlined by either NRCS or USDA or some other regulatory body that has the credibility to be able to weigh in on those practices. And something else that might be worth exploring, I don't know that you're going to get real far down the road of it, as someone that would consider utilizing that property, it'd be beneficial, and I think most people that would have an interest in using it, it would be beneficial if the Board of Selectmen could try to do some due diligence on what the historical management practices of the land were, and include that information in their RFP offerings, so that people that are going to jump in that might have management practices in mind, I can't prove it, but I'm fairly certain that Tom Wells was putting biosolids on those fields for many years, which means there's probably some heavy metal loading and some contamination of those acres from when they were putting biosolids on those fields that is going to have an impact to someone dependent on what their use case for the land is.
And I hope it's not what they're going through in Maine. Holy cow. The farmers in Maine they're certified organic farms are going broke because they're finding the metals from the sewage
That's
waste.
what he was putting on those fields.
As a biosolid, yeah.
So again, that's going to really dramatically impact the worth of what those acres are in value to local producers. That if you're looking at a 10-year plus cycle of potential contamination, for me, the hay crop I'm pulling off for the uses I'm using it for, it's probably okay. But and not to put words in Nick's mouth, but for somebody that's trying to pull forages of fully organic operation like that, there may or may not be fallout from producing crops on land like that, at least for a period of years.
So what kind of liability would the town have, right? If there's some they call them forever chemicals, right? That they're going through in Maine, they're virtually harder, impossible to find. There's very few labs that can even test for it. I mean, I'm thinking as the first selectman, do I need to test all that before I lease this to a farmer who's going to grow forage or crops or even food for people?
Well, I don't think you really want to open up a big can of worms. I think we should be realistic about this, and just put the main points that we think that it should be maintained for agricultural purposes.
You have to remember too, like some of the biosolid thing, when it came out, first started, it was like it was considered a good thing to do.
Right.
Until some research got done and they decided that maybe it wasn't working out so well. So, we talk about best practices all the time. I used biosolids for a couple of years. That, not what's necessarily considered best practice now isn't going to be considered best practice next year, or maybe something we did before is going to come back. It's always a learning curve. I think Mike's right. Like, we just want to basically, I think for us, we want them to talk to the local farmers first. And I think it's up to the person who wants to bid on that RFP to do due diligence to find out what that property is worth. I mean, when I go look at a piece of property, when somebody calls me or I'm interested in it, I go out and walk the property and I find out who was the producer before, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And do my research before I get into it, because obviously for what I do, there's a different level of need for soil and pesticides or herbicides or whatever it may be than for what Luther or Nick does. So I think everybody who has an interest has to do their part as well. I don't think we should put that on the town to say, oh, well, Tom Wells did this and grew corn. Okay, that's okay. But after that, it's not anybody else's. If you want to go do a soil test and go do some samples, the town, I think, should be willing to let you do it.
So maybe that's one of the recommendations, right? That
allow access and allow access and maybe availability of who used it in the past. Kind of what Luther said, then you can at least kind of figure out. I mean, I think everybody knows that which people use what, right? For the most part, especially if you're in town. And if not, and I'm sure Tom would be more than happy to tell you. It might take you all day to talk to him, but He'll be more than happy to tell you.
Hmm.
You know,
Okay, so we're gonna leave the due diligence up to the potential lessor, right?
I'm trying to find my lease agreements. I don't think I have them on this laptop. So, but there's a lot of language in them that specifically address things like stewardship and what the leaseor is required to do, like what I'm supposed to do, keep access open and keep the fields trimmed back and you know, and it actually, some of mine, and I don't think we need to give this to the town, but there are things in there, mine, that specify which fertilizers and herbicides I can use. Because there are places that I lease that have either blueberries or strawberries or honeybees or something. So all those things have to be considered, but that's kind of above what we need to tell them, I think.
Right.
But at the same time, having it so that they understand, or the town understands what they're getting into with this. And going back to Luther's comment about the fee or the cost or the income, you know, all that stuff that I do to those fields, and anybody else who leases or owns a field knows, costs money on my end. So that's my income part. Like, you know, the town wouldn't have to go in and maintain it anymore.
So there was a comment made by the first selectman that this isn't gonna be a money-making deal, right? You said they're not looking to make money. They're just want to see it used properly. So, so I don't think, I don't know. People always change their minds, but that was the
Yeah, it's
impression that I
also,
got.
you know, the administration changes every 3 years, so.
Right. So, and that's another thing. So what about term? Is this gonna be, you know, I
Yeah.
know that,
Oh, yeah, that's minimum, by the way. I would do 10. All mine are 10. 10 and
So I know-
What was
renewed at 5.
the town's plan? Is the town's future plan to keep this property, or are they gonna get rid of it?
I think
Nobody
that's something as a
knows.
technological development zone, right?
Well, for right now, the amount of liens that DEP and EPA have on it, it's not going anywhere.
That's right. Exactly right.
So, I mean, I think in the big, long-term giant picture, at some point, the town, I can't speak for the town. I would like to see it get back on the tax rolls, whether Luther buys it or you buy it, Art. I would like to see somebody purchase the
Sherry?
property. Yeah, Sherry. You know,
Sherry's got the
she's got the checkbook out. But that's not going to happen anytime soon. This is going to be tied up. That property is going to be tied up for a long, long time. There's, I don't even know the
So-
amounts. It's
Paul, is
staggering
that-
how much money.
Paul, is
So
is your
I'm
encouragement
looking
for
at
us
some
to
of
buy
the
more
stuff
farmland?
online about Mansfield, and the way that Mansfield handled it was their RFP is very broad and open-ended. Like, tell me about your business plan. It was very broad and open-ended. The lease is very specific.
Right,
So
okay.
if we're as a commission are gonna, you know, make some recommendations that they do an RFP, perhaps we can be a little bit more high level. I don't know how they would go about getting the lease. They'd have to go through town lawyers, right?
Yeah, that would go to legal.
Yeah,
Um,
so maybe we're just, you know, we recommend that it go to RFP, that it's $0. I mean, maybe it's limited to just farmers in town. I mean, why even open it up to anybody else if there's
Right.
that much interest? You know, just like some bullet points, like you were saying, Art. But it was pretty high level, just like, what's your business plan? What's your intended use? What's your stewardship plan?
and that's what in the RFP, Sherry?
Yeah, the application, it was high level questions that you
So
just
maybe
had to
that's a
fill out.
bullet point, right? We say that, you know, that the RFP is very much more intended to get to know who the lessor is. And then the strict agreements are within the contract. Length of term, expectations.
Yeah, I think I'm suggesting that perhaps our purview is to make recommendations about the RFP. And perhaps it's someone else's purview to understand.
Do the lease,
lease
yeah.
agreement.
Could the
So-
Ag commission
Understood.
review all the RFPs?
So what
But that
Mansfield
could
did
possibly
was,
be,
so what Mansfield did was, they called in Agriculture Commission members from surrounding towns to review the RFPs. And to avoid any sense of conflict, right? If I know that if we sat and decided on Luther's RFP, how long till someone complains and says it was a conflict? How long? Or even on Paul's. Paul didn't vote, right? He recused
We've
himself.
not had any complaints about any of our plans with our farm.
Yeah, none. No, I don't hear anything about anybody's farm in town.
So that's just how Mansfield did it, right? Just to try to dispel any sense of conflict, right? And we would probably need to do the same, I would think. So I mean, maybe the Board of Selectmen would be happy letting us decide. I don't know, but
Or be willing to make a recommendation after reviewing. They have to make the ultimate decision, I think.
Right.
But I think, after we reviewed the RFP, we would make our recommendation to the board.
so that's
the other,
a good point, Mike. So we would, just like we always do, we
Mhm.
don't make the decision, we make the
Right.
recommendation.
Correct.
We recommend that you lease this to Paul Varga under the terms that he has said. And then they go and they look at it and they go, well, we don't really like Paul Varga. We like Luther Brow better, so we're gonna give it to Luther. Okay.
Yep.
Your decision, not
Um,
ours.
the other thing with Mansfield is the properties that they were leasing were all prime agricultural soils. So that was kind of their position, was these are properties owned by the town, they are prime agricultural soils, and we would want them to be continuing in an agricultural tradition. I mean, that's the other aspect. If we don't think that perhaps there is good soil there, maybe it's not even a good agriculture area.
Well, I mean, the corn's been growing there just fine, so, I mean,
How about the cows that are eating it?
I couldn't tell you, but I think they did okay too, so.
I'm sure they did. I'm just. All right.
Yeah, it's
so-
just another position.
I actually
So-
like what Sherry posted. That is that right from Mansfield's RFP, Sherry?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. So it kind of touches on everything we've talked about except for preference to in-town farms, which would be the last thing.
So, and probably, so what we can recommend is that they use and we can even print one out and include it in our presentation to them. Use the Mansfield RFP process as a guide, that we limit it solely or do our best or give preferential treatment to resident farmers in Ashford. And Sherry had some terminology of, I think Sherry pushed it in the chat about what a farmer is and is that you, Sherry? Put that in the chat?
I don't know where you're going.
I don't know where I'm going either. That's why I asked you. All right, I'm scrolling through the chat looking for it. Oh, let's see. I don't see it. All right. So forget about that.
Well, regardless, I think you want in there preference given to residents of Ashford that are farmers.
Yeah, that was kind of the language that somebody posted in the chat. So preferential treatment to Ashford resident farmers. Here's the
That was
bullets I
Nick.
got.
Nick had some verbiage about preferential.
Yeah, I'm asking the wrong person. Thank you, Nick. Reestablish access to 44. Utilize BMPs as outlined by NRCS, other agricultural, educational entities such as them. And we discussed I have potential past uses down here, but we kind of decided maybe that was up to the lessor to
Yeah.
to do. So those first three, well, I actually think that the utilized BMPs is probably already in the Mansfield one, isn't it, Sherry?
Not the, like the application. The application was pretty high level.
Pretty broad. So so
There's-
those
there's a-
three,
Because you're
a
asking
couple-
them. Go ahead.
There's a couple things in the Mansfield one that it doesn't necessarily, it does say preference will be given to applicants with a strong stewardship plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the only thing, and you can hate me if you want, but I don't like this part where the selected producer will be required to work with USD NRCS to develop a conservation plan for the property. I don't think that onus should not be on the producer. That should be on the town.
Right.
That Mansfield's a bigger town and they might have enough weight to throw that around, but unless Luther wants to do a plan for, don't worry, Luther, I don't want the Cadwalk property, so you can have it.
They have all
But I'm
kinds
trying to
of
get
stuff
away from that side of
about,
town.
stone walls. I mean, they're very detailed. They can't touch
Right.
the stone walls. You have
Right.
to take
But that-
care of invasive plants, but that, again, that's the actual agreement. So
Yeah, that's the lease stuff.
Yeah.
So,
all right, so what I have is we're gonna recommend to the Board of Selectmen that they do indeed ask for RFPs for the property, right? We think it's a good idea. That the RFP, that they give preference to Ashford resident farmers, reestablish access to 44, utilize best management practices, and use the Mansfield RFP process as a guide, not as their, and then we could include, when I get this all together, I can include that in the email I send to them. And then we'll probably have to go to one of their meetings and present, right? They want it right away for their next meeting, so we gotta hammer this flat tonight. So so maybe I'm just, go ahead, Luther.
Art, again, with the apparent conflict abundantly called out, that I'm someone that will be interested in pursuing this land. I would really encourage the commission, when you say preferential treatment given to resident producers, I would be robust in your wording of that preferential treatment regardless of dollar amount offered by external to the town bidders. If someone from Coventry is willing to come in and offer $200 an acre, and I'm willing to not, preferential.
why do you think that
treatment,
there's
I
going to
worry-
be dollars involved? I mean, I thought this was like a $0 RFP.
Their current bid is already at $75 an acre from Wood Hill. So they're already getting offers being made from farms outside of town for per acre dollar values for lease. So
Really?
yes, so and
not
it's a very, very
Not guaranteed that
competitive
nobody's
market.
gonna pay.
It's a very competitive market for farmland at the moment. And so I'm just worried that if the language is not robust enough, that preferential treatment means do not consider offers from outside of town unless no local farmers want it. That well, you were preferred, however, because of our fiduciary responsibility to the town and the $3,000 a year differential between your offer and the next, we feel obligated to take that one. Kind of a scenario is going to undermine the standing of local producers.
I think a lot of that will get vetted by the town attorneys. I don't think we need to get too worried about the language because we're not attorneys. I think we should, I'm totally good with doing the preferential treatment for town agriculture producers. But a lot of that other stuff, I think, we're going to get down a rabbit hole of coming up with language, and then the attorneys are going to look at it and do whatever they think is right.
Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, so like I said, I was just reviewing one of these from up in Mass, and the way they said it in their RFP, it was something super low, like $20 an acre per year. This is our price to anybody, but we have a preferential treatment for in-town people, and that's just the price that it was going to be. And that kind of solves that problem of, we know we're not going to make money on this. We just want to get someone to farm and maintain, and we're going to look at their proposals of what they've got to do. We're going to preference the people in town to do it, and that solves that problem.
Yeah, exactly.
So they did a minimum, they did a set dollar amount. This is what
They
the
just said
list is gonna
amount.
be.
Yeah, the proposals didn't include bidding price in it. It was just, this is what it's going to cost per acre, period. And it was, I don't remember the number, but it was very low.
So
Well,
they
we
had a
could
set,
recommend a set price, either
Yeah.
That's what I was
very
just gonna
low or
say.
zero.
a set dollar amount per acre, and the Board of Selectmen can decide what that is,
Yeah.
right? We recommend you set a dollar amount per acre regardless of who it is.
Well,
And
You could even recommend a flat dollar amount, period.
for the
Doesn't have
lease,
to be
Yeah,
per
I would-
acre.
right?
I
So
would
a
just
set,
do it on a flat dollar amount if you wanted to go that route, but the other avenue I guess you could take is, I don't know if like a first right of refusal to a town resident is the right wording, but the point is, regardless of any monetary or any other agreements, a town resident should have first opportunity to provide a bid to the town of the selectmen, right? I think that's fundamentally what we're striving for here as a commission.
so, and that's what the Board of Selectmen want. So we gotta try to word it somehow, that recommend that like you said, the Ashford resident farmers get the right of first refusal. And kind of like what Luther said, barring no Ashford bidders, you can go out of town. And then if you do the set dollar amount thing, whether it's $100 for a year or whatever, that levels that playing field so that someone from out of town can't come in and say, well, I'm going to give $100 an acre, and all you local guys are kicked to the curb because I'm going to make the town rich, right? So that takes that out of the equation. So it's a set dollar amount, no matter who you are. Ashford resident farmers, right of first refusal, right? And barring no Ashford bidders, I guess, right? It's a bid process. Look at out of town bids. I mean, how's,
The proposal process, not a bid process, if you're not taking the money into account.
Yeah.
thank you. See, I need you guys to keep me on track here. So
We are.
you're doing a good job, I think. All right.
We're trying. You and Mike have some big shoes that we're trying to fill.
I have confidence in you guys. All right. So set dollar amount per acre. Proposals from Ashford resident farmers. I don't know how to word it right, but they are considered first and foremost. Right? I don't know, for lack of any better words, if anybody can come up.
I would stick with preference. Preference is given to Ashford farmers.
All right, preference. So if the set dollar amount per acre preference given to Ashford farmers, that kind of covers all those bases for everybody. All right, set dollar amount per acre. Preference.
Sorry, Art, I'm slow, probably because my mind has to process things over time. But is it even worth it to get into the monetary aspect?
I like Luther's point, right? If you want to level the playing field. We're just giving them recommendations, right? So the
Yeah, I
recommendation
believe
is,
that was Nick's point, sorry. But I don't know, help me out, I'm trying to think through this, right?
I think it should be a
Is-
set dollar amount, whether it's $10 or $0. The selectmen can figure that out, but if it's set, no matter who you are, then there's not a bidding war. I think that was the point we were trying to make. So I think our recommendation would be that it's a set amount. Is that fair?
Yeah, no,
Does that make sense?
Does the commission feel that it would be appropriate that the commission make a recommendation about what the appropriate value of an annual lease for that farmland is? Because the Board of Selectmen has no idea what farmland is worth or what a farmer might be able to pay for that land. So my only concern is that by putting the ball only in their court to determine what the value of the lease is, they have no idea what it is. So they may put some arbitrary $100 an acre number on there saying, well, geez, Wood Hill was willing to give us 75 bucks an acre. Why don't we go for $100 an acre, which is actually pretty expensive lease cost for somebody like myself that's going to have to come in and improve the fields, plant them all down, do all the nutrient management. And I'm a year before I see any return on my time. And I've just thrown all that lease value at it. So my only cautionary statement is by throwing that completely in the Board of Selectmen's lap, they have no tools with which to make that decision.
So I'll go back to my original statement, which was $0.
so,
No, and one thing too to consider is that this is the first time it's going out, so it might be $0 this time, and then or for whatever the length of the term is or something, and then it might have to change. Unfortunately, that means like for Luther, if he goes in and improves it, he takes a hit, which is a problem. That's why I do 10-year leases for that reason. But Luther's right as well. The Board of Selectmen has no idea what that ground is worth, whether it's agricultural value or lease value or anything.
I think the only downside to doing is $0 if they've already seen they can get $75, they're gonna.
But they've expressed that they're not interested in making money. It's not a money-making venture.
Right.
They're just trying to figure out what.
That's what they said. That's what they
That's
said
what
in
they
the public meeting.
That's
Okay.
a big difference between 0 and 75. But if you throw at least something at it,
Right.
I think is a more reasonable. But yeah, it would be great to see $0.
does
We're supposed to be
Mansfield-
promoting agriculture. Make it 0.
Well, so we could do, hey, okay, so it's a $0 lease. No, that's not gonna work. Forget it. Huh. This is
I would expect it to be a low number if it's not
I mean,
zero.
Art, just write down like a set dollar amount, $50 or less an acre. We don't have to get too specific.
So we're recommending that it should be a set dollar amount of $50 per acre or less. Or
And if
yearly
we don't
lease
like
of,
0 and we don't like 100. I mean, just pick something that you think is reasonable.
The
Well,
best
Luther, what do
property
you-
was 25.
if we were gonna throw a number at him, what
25
would
or
you throw?
less.
I was thinking 20 or less.
20 or less. There you go. Write that down, Art.
Set
20
20
amount.
or
or
less,
less.
correct. I agree. I think that's a very fair
$20 or
recommendation.
less, a set amount, $20 or less per acre.
Or less per acre.
Done.
And are we
Preference
gonna put,
given to Ashford.
With preference given.
are we
to
gonna
Ashford
recommend a
resident
time
farmers.
frame?
What's that?
Are we going to recommend a time frame?
We should, and
Yes.
now that we've got, that should be next, so we've got preferential treatment to Ashford farmers, access to 44, usualized BMPs, set amount of dollars per acre of $20 or less, So now we should probably, the last bullet we should do is what length of time? I think they're on a year-to-year basis. And I know that I know that in Mansfield, they said if you put in anything permit, that's on you. And if you can't take it with you when your lease is up, then it stays. So
Well, my concern is that if it's being utilized for corn and then all of a sudden they're gonna pull away, that a cover crop be maintained or something be provided on the property. And I think that's good agricultural practice. I just don't think if they walk away, they just leave it open, fallow, and say, okay, good luck, guys, thank you, and walk away.
Right, so that would be covered under the BMPs, right? And that would have to be outlined in the in your proposal. You would say, these are the BMPs that I'm gonna implement. And when we chop the corn, we're gonna plant winter rye and or whatever, right? So and that would come out in the interview process and in the application process. So but so time frame, right? So the town, I'm gonna speak like the town, and they're gonna balk at 10 years, man. They're just not gonna, they're gonna want to have some, maybe even a yearly review process. Maybe it's a 10-year lease with annual review or something like that. But I mean,
You almost need like a minimum of 5 for the farmer to be.
agreed.
What's
So
what's the word? Not productive, productive, but also to get the return on investment.
Like Luther said, if here I went in there and leased it, it's a minimum of a year before we're in year 2 before we get a return on it. Minimum.
Correct.
Yeah.
And even then the first year yield is not going to be, anything
Great.
really. So, I mean,
Right.
it has to be if you're going to want somebody other than a annual crop growing, it's going to have to be more than a year.
I
Just
agree.
To throw out the perspective of not necessarily crops, if we're looking at farmland, I would not do anything under 10 to 15 because I've got a lot of infrastructure I got to put in there, whether it be temporary or not. It's a lot of temporary fencing, temporary water, temporary plantings for livestock. It's a huge infrastructure investment that I won't see anything back for 5+ at the minimum.
But
So
I
if we're
think that's
trying to broaden expansion of just row crop or hay, we need to look at something much longer than a year or 5 or 10.
Doug, what is that zoned as? That's zoned as the IT, the technical development zone? Is that correct?
Let me look. I don't think it's even that. Because that's what's in the POCE of what they want. But let me check the regs. I have them right in front of me.
So say I just read through the POCE and that's what it was.
Yeah.
yeah, I think
I'll double check.
I mean, a minimum of 5 would be the bottom that I would even probably consider. But
Why don't you recommend 5? Why don't we recommend 5 to 10? Because if I was a select person, and because this is new, I would not want to enter into a lease for 10 years simply because like it's new property.
Well,
I don't know what's going on. Like maybe
Nope.
we're going to sell it or, that kind of thing. So maybe the commission recommends 5 to 10.
Well, okay. That's what we're gonna do. I think 5 to 10.
no, I mean,
No, I'm
it's
just thinking.
just a
we're taking
recommendation, and if-
recommendations, right?
yeah,
We're
if
just
they
making
decide they want to go with a 1-year lease, then Luther is going to have to decide if he wants to take that chance. I mean, that's kind of how it works. It sucks, but that's how it works. I mean,
Right.
I don't think that's in the best interest of the town or the property, but that's the Board of Selectmen's purview, not, we're just giving them a recommendation.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say, Paul. We're just giving them a recommendation. We recommend a minimum 5-year up to a 10-year lease. Any kind of review process or just throw that at them and let them figure that out?
I'd say let them figure that out.
The
Yeah.
lawyers are gonna figure that out,
Yeah.
is what's gonna happen with the town attorney. So, it may be very different than what we propose. So, when it comes back down, they're trying to fast track that. They want to get at least for this year, so, this growing season. So, that's why they wanted us to hurry on it. All right, so,
I think you should add to the recommendation about the 5-10 years, why, it's because, it takes that long because they may not understand that concept, right? It takes that long to get a return.
right, 5 to 10 year lease. Length of time of return. Yeah, I got that. All right. So we are going to recommend that it is a good idea to lease that property out to local farmers. That preferential treatment be given to Ashford farmers. That access be reestablished. See, now I got my cat in here.
Route 44.
Access, I'm getting rid of my cat. She's gonna log me into something else. Reestablish access to Route 44, utilize best management practices, set dollar amount per acre of $20 per acre or less, with preference given to Ashford farmers. I already said that, and a minimum of 5 to 10 year lease due to the length of time it takes for a farmer to make some sort of return on their investment in the land. So do you guys know if there's any possibility of expanding that 21 acres?
I haven't been back there since I was much younger than I am today. So,
Yeah, I think you would, I think I'll try and get down there and just walk that property and take a quick view of it so I can have a better, give everyone a better understanding of what's back there now. I mean,
Thank
we
you.
know the corn is there, but what is the potential? And
the last I knew, it had overgrown pretty good.
Yeah.
Nobody really took care of it for
Yeah.
the, you know.
Well, I can determine that easily.
Yeah.
Paul.
If you want company walking it, let me know.
Okay.
Me too.
I have
But
a
if
drone
it's
too, guys.
overgrown.
No. So both Paul and Nick have drones. You guys could fly that thing pretty
Go
good.
fly around and take some video, and you don't even have to get dirty anymore. It's great.
Oh, it's disgusting.
So
Wow.
what I'm gonna do is, hopefully very soon, when's the next Board of Selectmen meeting? Is it today's the 21st? Would it be the
First
first?
week of May, May 2nd, I think it is. Art, hang on. It should be May 2nd.
All right, I'm gonna type this up. I'm gonna send it out to all the members of the commission. And I get your feedback back from me as soon as possible. Hopefully I'll get it typed up by the weekend. So that we can have a finished document that everyone likes. And I can get it emailed into the Board of Selectmen. I'll include in that email the RFP process from Mansfield. Oh yeah, are we gonna still recommend that they use the Mansfield process as a guide? Or do we want to use it as a guide so when they come back and ask us questions, we know what to do? We know what to say.
I think they would like, my understanding of this too, is I think that they would like to have us take a big part in making suggestions to them.
All right,
So,
so I will try to find that. Sherry, you found that document, right? I'll find it and I'll email it out to all you guys so we
Sure.
can look at it. And if you don't get it by Monday, email me and say, Art, where is it?
Hey,
That's what Sherry does.
The
Go ahead,
one
Paul.
that Nick pulled up from Duxbury, Mass, that RFP is pretty substantial. That would be a really good reference. I've been looking through it while we've been talking. I mean, I don't know if we want to go this far, but it literally breaks down preference given to Duxbury farmers and those living closest to town. And then it has it broken down by mileage, literally like 1 to 10 miles, highly advantageous, 11 to 25 miles, advantageous, greater than 25 miles, not advantageous. it's pretty intense. So that's some good reference material there. Like I said, I don't know if you want to go that deep with it, but it's there for the use.
The town also did a full walkthrough with all the people, and they gave preference to people that actually showed up to the walkthrough.
Well,
Yeah.
that's just
Man's
picking
gonna
up.
Oh, that's serious. Like that's serious stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's important stuff. You know, like I said, I agree 100%.
All right. Nick, you're gonna email me the link to the Duxbury thing. Email it, don't text it, because it just sits in my phone.
It's in the
Sherry's
chat. Do you
got
need it
the
again?
link. What's that?
Yes, Nick, the answer is
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, I'll send it
You will
again.
need it again.
In an email. What's
I
that?
just
Art?
told you guys how old I am. You really think I got a lot of catching up to do to catch Nick? Jeez, with this, and I got a wife who's in IT. So
And younger than you. Don't forget that.
yeah, quite a bit.
Enough said.
Yeah,
boy.
nobody's saying too much about that. I don't know.
Oh,
Next
boy.
agenda item.
All those years drinking, they're catching up with me. All right. So I forgot where I was. All right, so I have a list of proposals. Nick's gonna email me that thing. Sherry's gonna email me that thing. We're gonna get that out to everybody. I'm gonna type this up. I'm gonna get that out to everybody. They're gonna get back to me. Looks good, looks awful. Change this, fix that. That's great. And we'll have something ready and emailed into the Board of Selectmen for their next meeting. And hopefully all of us can attend, so that if there are questions and it's something I can't answer, I'll have you guys to back me up. All right? Sound like a plan?
Good.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. New business is done. All right, let's it's 9 o'clock already, so let's I put roundtable is new. It was just a chance for anybody on the commission who has something they want to bring up, something they need to talk about. I used to have it on the agenda all the time. It kind of fell off. Nobody has anything they want to chat about. It's important.
Just real quick, I showed up to the Stafford Regional Ag meeting.
Yeah, my wife was there.
Yeah. It sounds like we're doing way better than most towns are in general, was the general consensus. Not a whole lot came out of it besides a lot of people complaining about very specific animal counts and all chickens are roosters and chicken complaint rules. But it sounds like we're doing great.
Luther, you should have went. It was entertaining.
Don't get me started on animal units. That's the
You
hill
know,
I die
I've-
on.
I have absolutely had my fill of agriculture being attacked, and I never thought that I would in Ashford experience the level of hostility that we have had from
Yeah.
neighbors that we've been really good neighbors to for a dozen years, that just throw that away without a care the minute that they feel affronted by the things you're doing on your property that are actually
Just-
a really good thing to do. It's just
You're not the only one, because it actually came around to me the other day. So it's an unfortunate, it's a societal thing. It really is. People just don't understand what we go through on a daily basis to put food on their table. I mean, I realize, like, for me, I'm an indirect provider, right? Because I'm providing for the animal or the grower. But they just cannot grasp it whatsoever.
Well, wait till they read this month's Citizen. It's
Yeah,
gonna be
you're
10
counting on them
easy
reading
steps.
it, number one.
So that just brings up 2 points that we need to continue doing what we're doing, especially on the educational front, right? We need to be straight up, right out in front of everybody, right? What we're doing and how we're doing it and why it's the right thing to do. The second thing is that I really believe that the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of Selectmen rely on us, the Agriculture Commission, to weed through the rhetoric and be the adult, calm voices in the room, when it gets crazy. So we've done a very good job of that, and we need to keep it up. So it was the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on the hearing on the proposed regulation change was quite well done, especially by the pro agriculture folks. We all had very good points. And for me, the bottom line has always been that it's either farms or houses. And what we do on a regulatory basis here in town is what is going to make those decisions. And if you want to just, and maybe we need to do some more education on what costs of community services are and how
It'll be
that
in the
really
newsletter.
functions. What?
It's in the newsletter.
There you go, Sherry. And how farms, active, sustainably, financially profitable farms keep the mill rate down. And people don't make that connection, and that's it really in their wallet. So that's something Sherry will live and die on animal units. I'll live and die on the cost of community services, right? That's that's
It's a good one too.
yeah. So, but that was never more. So I don't know. Did you hear? When I spoke, I talked. I don't know. Maybe some of you guys who follow me on Instagram saw my post about selling the farm. So and for you guys who don't know, as an April Fool's joke, I posted my farm for sale on Instagram for 1.25 million.
My neighbor
was an April
called
Fool's
me.
joke, and
My
actually
neighbor
had people
called me who
interested.
Was out of the town and asked what's going on with Art.
What's that?
Ed, who used to live across the street, called
Oh,
me
Ed
and said,
Ober.
what's going on with Art? He's leaving? I can't believe it.
See, so 1.25 million. If Sherry and I both decided after I posted that, if someone shows up with a check for 1.25 million, we're getting in the car and we're driving out of here. We're done. And
Nobody showed up.
Nobody showed up?
no,
No.
we're still waiting.
Did you, but did you post that part? Because you might be surprised if you actually post that. Somebody might show up.
Well, I'm still getting responses to it, actually. Where is this? Mostly where is it? Because I didn't say where it was.
Right.
But that's it. So but that's how I made this point in that that's how close we are to losing our farms in town to subdivision. I worked for Toll Brothers, right? One of the biggest residential subdivision companies in the United States. And I worked for an excavating contractor who was subcontracted to them. And they tried to hire me as one of their land agents, right? And what they do is their land agents, who are almost attorneys, will go into a town and they will learn the planning and zoning regulations from top to bottom. So when their application goes in, it's undeniable, right? It's rubber stamped because it's perfect. And they'll go farm to farm to farm. 20 houses here, 30 houses here. I did a 55 unit condo complex on a old farm land, pushing the dozer, running up topsoil, where the biggest draft horseshoe came rolling out of that topsoil pile I have ever seen. And it was we're right on that precipice, and that it's the easiest, simplest thing.
So the other thing too that we should be keeping on our radar too is the plan of conservation and development. So that'll be coming up soon. In another year or so, they'll start putting together a team around that, and we should make sure that we have representatives on the team.
Yes, and that was mentioned at the board at one of the meetings that it was coming up for renewal. So Nick, you got
to bring it back around one more time to the Stafford Ag meeting, the biggest thing I got out of it, which started out not that strong, was the right to farm clause that most towns have adopted, and I don't think Ashford has yet, right?
We don't, and it's in the plan of conservation and development to do.
Okay.
And we've batted that around, and so I'm a big proponent of choosing your battles, right? And when and things need to be timed, and if you pile too many things on top of each other, they'll just say whoa. So it is definitely something we should be looking at, and maybe we look at that. Maybe we try it in future meetings. We'll prioritize that over, over the tax things, right? I mean, we can't go to the, Board of Selectmen and say, we want 3 ordinances, 2 tax abatement ordinances and a right to farm ordinance, all on the same town meeting, right? That's not gonna fly. So, but it's something we should definitely be looking at, I think. So maybe the next chairman will change his tune or her tune and want to do something different, but that's just my thinking. So.
Yeah, the initial outcome was that it didn't really change a lot because they're basically copying the state things that are already there. But what it did do was give leverage to the town people to say, it's a right to farm town. Don't complain to us. That's what it is. And the other biggest thing it did was most of these towns put signs at their entrances. Welcome to Ashford. We're a right to farm town. We support local farming. This, that, Lebanon, Colchester, there's a pile of them that did it. So people can't show up to the town and not think this is a farming town. New people showing up. Every resident, when they come back to town, it's just in their mind. And it makes it a lot harder to fight these small battles when it's always in their mind that we're a right to farm town or farming is forward.
Love it.
So it may seem like a small thing to begin with. I mean, 3 months ago, I thought this was useless to do. And then I heard these arguments and I thought, wow, this sounds awesome.
That might
Love
be a
it.
better thing to go focus on, Art, than coming back with the abatement topic.
I'm tending
I
to
think that
agree
has
with
a
you,
much-
Doug.
I think it has a much broader impact to the town across farmers and potential farmers.
Might help
with
with
the
the conflict
demographic of the
issues
town.
too, right? All right,
It-
so we'll,
It should help, yes. Over time, it should help.
right,
It
Just so
doesn't
you
really
know,
give us
the-
any more rights, but it's
Right.
just one more thing.
The Board of Selectmen actually have not amongst their board dropped the abatement thing either. The Board of Selectmen has kept that alive, the 2 tax abatement discussions.
yeah,
So it's not off the table. So my fingers are crossed, and I'm actually hopeful that if the Board of Selectmen moves it forward, it's a little bit different than the Ag Commission moving it forward.
Yep.
But that discussion that was had at that meeting, and unfortunately it brought Luther's project to light or into the spotlight. It also put some thoughts into the Board of Selectmen's head that, maybe they need to think about some of this stuff and not just the Ag Commission bringing it to them all the time. So,
they are very
We can hope.
supportive, the Board of Selectmen, and they're, what the word that I've got is they're just waiting for us to get the ball rolling again. So, let's get this RFP thing off our plate. And then we'll decide if we want to follow through on, next meeting, we'll decide if we want to follow through on tax abatements or the right to farm ordinance, and we'll go from there.
good.
All right.
Yeah, that's fair, Art.
All right. So I just did the action items for next meeting. This is one of the longest meetings we've ever had. It is 9:10 PM. Does anyone have anything else? This turned into a good roundtable discussion, actually.
Mhm.
So I'm glad I put it on the agenda.
Good.
All right. Motion to, nobody has anything else? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mike Sabiga, second.
Second.
Paul Varga. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much, everyone. This was one of the most productive meetings we've had in a very long time. I appreciate all of you guys making it here. I will get that stuff out. If I can stop sitting in my new truck.
Wow.